We're holding Perek Lamed, chapter 30 of Sefer Mishlei. Altogether, there's 31 Perakim. So we have one more Perek to go. Just a couple more weeks before we finish Sefer Mishlei. This is a very interesting chapter towards the end of the Sefer. Apparently, he leaves some of his messages towards the end. He begins to talk a little bit about himself. I call this the Perek of regrets. Confesses several things that he did, several mistakes he made. And these are also valuable lessons for us too. Even though he was the Chacham Mikol Adam, he was the smartest man that ever lived, he's only a human being, and he made mistakes as well. So Perek Lamed begins with the words Divrei Agur bin Yakeh. These are the words of Agur bin Yakeh. Hamasa, the prophecy, Ne'um HaGever, of which is being said by this individual, meaning himself, le'itiel, to itiel, le'itiel va'uchal, to these two individuals. Itiel apparently was somebody very smart who had asked him several questions. That is why he's mentioned twice. He's the one that presented the questions to Shlomo HaMelech, and Shlomo HaMelech responds. Some say Agur bin Yakeh himself is either a friend, a student, or a teacher of Shlomo HaMelech. That these are his words, his message. But Chazal tell us that the reason why Shlomo Melech here is called Agur is just like he's called Kohelet. Why was Shlomo called Kohelet? Because he assembled many people to teach them. So here too, Divrei Agur bin Yakeh, these are the words of an individual who gathered a lot of wisdom, who agar, a lot of chokhmah. However, in the end, Yakeh, he spit it out. In other words, he misused it, and it was in some ways forgotten from him or removed from him, all the chokhmah and binah, because he thought that he was smart and that he can avoid doing certain things or following certain limitations that the Torah set for the king, and he thought because of his chokhmah, because of who he was, that perhaps this did not apply to him, certain mitzvot, that whatever the Torah was concerned may happen, would not happen to him, he would be careful, and apparently that did not happen. He made mistakes. And that is what is insinuated in the word le'itiel. Besides being the name of an individual, what is insinuated is iti el. In other words, Hashem is with me. Nothing will happen to me. Because he was so confident, because of his wisdom, that nothing would happen to him, unfortunately he did make the mistakes. And he begins to say as follows, Kibar anochi meish velo binat adam li. For I am boorish than any man, neither do I have man's understanding. As soon as he says the words Kibar anochi, he is confessing that he's ignorant, that he made mistakes, that he only realizes now that no matter how smart an individual is, he should not rely on his intelligence. That's not something to rely on, to feel so secure about, because one's mind acts like an attorney. It can justify things, it can convince you. It is not something that you want to rely on or depend on. That is why he calls himself a bar, as though he never learned anything. Even though he thought he learned a lot, he says, Velo binat adam li, I really did not have full understanding. That's one idea that he says. The second idea is that Shlomo HaMelech talks about the mysteries of the universe. After all, he, with all his wisdom, attempted to understand everything there is to understand. And he says somewhere in Kohelet that even if you were to live 1,000 years, or a long, long time, you would not be able to grasp, to absorb all that there is in this world, all the incredible information that there is, all the wonders of the earth. To understand that, forget about it, but even to absorb and realize what there is here, 1,000 years is not enough. There's so much beauty, so much majesty, so much detail in the handiwork of Hashem that we don't have the time to analyze everything. You have biologists that are analyzing, you have ecologists that are analyzing, scientists, physicists, everybody in their area. Medicine, they haven't gotten to anything yet. I mean, just barely just scratching the surface, as they say. And this is more than what they did know years ago, supposedly. So here we have an individual who's smarter than everyone else, and he says, "Velo binat adam li," I still don't have anything. Whatever I learned is a drop in the bucket to all that there is to learn. But it's not so much the amount that there is to learn. It's just that the ability. He's talking also about the ability. Don't try too hard to understand that which is beyond you. It's impossible for the human mind, which is limited, to try to figure everything out. And in the Sefer Yov, you will see also similar message when Yov tries to figure out why things happen to good people, why bad things happen to good people, why good things happen to bad people. Tzaddik veralo, rasha v'tovlo. It is very difficult to understand all these things. And he's very poetic about it, and in how he describes why it's not worth one's effort to try to figure it out. And he says like this: first of all, v'lo lamati chokhmah v'dat kedoshim eda. He continues on to explain that neither have I learned wisdom, nor do I know the knowledge of the holy ones. In other words, what's the holy ones? That which is sodot habriyah, that is which is the mysteries or the secrets of creation. That I did not learn, even though I tried to figure it out, I tried to understand it. The mitzvot, for example, the Torah does not give reasons for the mitzvot. Some of them are logical, they make sense. Even the Goyim have adopted them. We would apply them even if we had no Torah. But then there's some that we can't figure out. Paraduma, which we just read, the ashes of the red heifer, how it makes one clean. Somehow, when they sprinkle it on you, it removes that high level of impurity. And that does not happen in one day. It needs to happen over a 7-day period. Paraduma is a chok. It's a decree. It's something that we don't understand. And so are many of the mitzvot in the Torah, shatnez, not to wear wool and linen, and even the dietary laws, kashrut, is considered a chok. Why should I be able to eat certain foods? What does it do to the system? So all of these are chokim, and even though the commentaries give us some explanations, and the Kabbalah elaborates a little bit more, it does not mean that is the main reason for the mitzvah. The main reason is only Hashem knows. And that's a very important point when one begins to learn Torah, when one has questions on the Torah, on Judaism, on why Hashem does certain things. We must remember at all times that it's not possible for us to get all the answers. Even if we were to read everything and know everything, it's just not possible. While the human being is alive, it is not possible for him to know or to see everything that there is to see. His eyes are limited. There are animals that can run faster than us. There are birds that can see better than us. Right? The human being is limited physically and spiritually too. And many of these areas are in the spiritual realm, and it's not possible. So that Shlomo Melech, he's telling this to us, and it is befitting that he's telling this to us, because he was the Chacham Mikol Adam, and he knew everything that there is to know, more than anyone else. And he says, forget it. Don't try too hard. It's not good. Because even I couldn't figure everything out that there is in the Seder HaBriyah. And now he explains as follows. Part of his mistake was to go against what was already written in the Torah. And who gave us the Torah? Moshe Rabbeinu. So in the next pasuk he says, Mi ala shamayim vayirad mi asaf ruach v'chofnav mi tzarar mayim basimla mi yakim kol afsei aretz ma shemo u'ma shem beno kiteda. Who ascended to heaven and descended? Who gathered the wind in his fists? Who wrapped the water in a garment? Who established all the ends of the earth? What is his name and what is the name of his son, if you know? In other words, is there anybody that was able to conquer all this? Go up to the heavens, hold the wind, or hold the water? Who is he talking about over here? One interpretation is that he's talking about Moshe. In other words, he went against the words of Moshe, the words that Moshe wrote in the Torah. The commandments that a king should not have too many women, and so forth. So, mi ala shamayim, who else can compare himself to Moshe, and therefore go against Moshe? Moshe is the only one that went up to the shamayim. One interpretation, therefore, is that he's describing Moshe when he went up to the shamayim, or when he brought certain plagues, certain makot in Egypt. Ruach bechofnav could mean the shchin. Sarar mayim could mean the splitting of the Red Sea, where the waters were set apart. Or when he gave us the Torah, referring to me, Hikim kol afsei aretz. That's one description, talking about Moshe. But he's also talking about over here, if you pay attention, if you follow the pasuk, it's very interesting. He's actually describing the four elements. The Arba Yesodot. He begins to talk about Mi ala shamayim v'yered mi asaf ruach b'chofnav. So he's talking about wind. Mitzarar mayim. He's talking about water. Mi yakim kol afsei aretz. He's talking about earth. The first one, Mi ala shamayim, was esh, was fire, because it rises. He's talking about the 40 Yesodot. Whoever was able to figure out the nature of the elements. Why is it that fire rises? Why is it that ruach blows? Why is it that water, nigrar, it flows? Why is it that the earth stands in one place or is solid? You see the difference in the nature of the elements that we have, the four elements. In other words, whoever was able to figure out the nature of the elements, something which is a lot closer to us, nobody has. If that we cannot do, that which is so close to us and so familiar to us, then can we figure out the mysteries of how the world was created? And not only the mysteries of the world. Rabbi tells us to be very careful not to ask, and what was before the world was created, and what's on top and what's below? We have no reshut, no permission to ask such questions. Because we can't go into that area where our minds are not capable of figuring it out, what was before. And that's what he says over here. You cannot figure out, and nobody even has a good, thorough knowledge of that which is familiar to us, like the four elements, then the more so the mysteries of creation. Kol imrat Eloah tzerufa magenu lachosim bo. That's a very important pasuk. Every word of Hashem is refined. He's a shield for all who take refuge in Him. Every word of Hashem is refined. He's reminding us that every word in the Torah is necessary. There's not an extra letter in the Torah. Everything is refined. Everything is perfect. And therefore, you cannot add or detract. Lo tosif v'lo tigra. You cannot add to what is written in the Torah. The Torah was written in such a way, the commandments happen to be 613, and they just happen to have been given in such a way that only Hashem can prescribe. And if we do not follow them right, then we are misusing it. As the rabbis give us a mashal, to what is this compared to if you misuse the mitzvot, if you add, you detract, you change? To a doctor who prescribed some medication to a sick man. And he tells him how much to take every day and for how many days. It's a very powerful medicine. Make sure you follow my prescription, my directions clearly. And this man took the whole thing in one shot. You can imagine what happened to him. He became very, very sick. And the doctor, of course, rebuked him. He says, you're going to kill yourself. You have to be careful to follow the instructions. The Torah is very clear as to the instructions on how to live a Jewish life. And if one does not do it properly, either adding or taking away, then he's misusing it. So the Torah, the way it is written, every word is important, and besides that, it's magenu lachosim bo, it's also a shield, it also protects us. Therefore, Shlomo HaMelech says, I should have been more careful. I shouldn't have thought, okay, it's okay for me to make a small change, for me it doesn't apply. That's what he's trying to say. He's talking about himself. The Torah, the way it is written, is the way it should be adapted, the way we should go by. We should not attempt to make any changes like some groups in today's world, some Jewish groups, attempt to do by saying that the world has changed. The Torah has not changed. The world may have changed, but the Torah has not changed. We have no right to adapt the Torah to the times. We adapt the times to the Torah. We try to figure things out. What do we do with something called electricity today on Shabbat? Is that fire? Is it exactly like fire? Can you make Havdalah on a light bulb? These are interesting and valid questions dealing with the science of today, the technology of today, but it doesn't mean you change the Torah because of that. Some people who are totally not knowledgeable of the Torah really think that the Torah forbids turning on a light on Shabbat back then because it required working hard with 2 stones to produce fire. And today, all it is turning on the switch. Perhaps it should be mutar. Obviously, we don't subscribe to that. Torah has not changed. If you study Hilchot Shabbat, you will find out what the spirit of the law is. Why turning on the light is forbidden. It has nothing to do with hard work. Torah does not forbid avodah on Shabbat, it forbids melacha. Melacha is a certain types of creative work. Even if they're easy to do, they're forbidden. But people rely on their understanding and their interpretation instead of reading the Torah and learning it correctly, properly with the mefarshim, the gemarot, the midrashim. And that's what happens. The human mind makes mistakes unless he follows the masoret, unless he follows exactly the tradition, the way our forefathers accepted it and lived by it. And therefore he says, the next pasuk, what we just said, in different words, Al tosef al dvarav pen yochiach b'cha v'nichzafta. Do not add to his words lest he prove to you and you will be found a liar. In other words, do not add, do not make any changes. The rabbis tell us that what Shlomo Melech attempted to do once was to try to figure out a case on who was right and who was wrong without witnesses. And that's not right. You don't do it that way. Even though he was ingenious with the famous case of the two women and whose son is the live son. But that was an ingenious way of being able to figure it out. But otherwise, you have to follow the guidelines of the Torah on how to solve a situation, how to solve a problem. And he didn't. And therefore it did not work out for him. Next pasuk, Shetayim sha'alti mi'itach al timna mimeni v'terem amut. I ask two things of you, of Hashem. In other words, do not withhold them from me before I die. What he's saying here is two things. I ask of you, of Hashem, two things before I die. Why before I die? Because the things that he's going to ask have to do with shlemut ha'adam. A person has to refine his character while he's alive. You cannot do so after you die. In other words, the greatest heights a person can reach is while he's alive. And the following things that he asks have to do with shlemut ha'adam. They have to do with completing himself. In other words, refining himself, being able to live according to what the Torah expects us to live. In other words, as decent human beings. As we will see what those two things are. And so he asks for those two things before he dies, so he can attain shlemut, so he can never swerve from the right path. And he asks that these things be with him all his life. That's what he means. Don't hold them back from me. In other words, as long as I am alive, help me with these two. And what are they? Shav utvar kazav al haik mimeni, resh va'osher al titenli hatrifeni lechem chuki. The second part of this pasuk is a very familiar passage. Basically he says, distance falsehood and the lying word from me. I want to stay away as much as possible. I don't want to be involved in anything that is deceitful, anything that involves lying, cheating, and give me neither poverty nor wealth. Provide me my allotted bread. Two very different kinds of ideas. Nevertheless, there's some connection, as we will see in the following pasuk. First of all, he's emphasizing the dangers of lying, of living falsely, of doing things in the wrong way, misleading. All of that is called sheker. Sheker v'kazav. It really touches our lives in many areas of our life, whether it's with our neighbors or with our spouse, with our friends, with our kids, in business ethics. So this is a very important area. Sheker, or shav as he calls it, udvar kazav, lying. And of course, what's worse than lying is swearing falsely, using the name of Hashem too, as we will soon see. So help me that I don't have to go through these situations and be tempted to lie. And you know what? Many times you are in an uncomfortable situation. Somebody puts you on the spot, and what are you going to say? You have to be very careful, and you don't want to say the truth, because it's either embarrassing, or he can't know, he or she cannot know it, or for some reason you don't want to say it. So you might just be tempted to say a lie. And that is a lack of integrity. It's a lack of shlemut in a person. If he's not able to be himself, if he's not able to relate the truth, if he does not seek the truth, for sure not. If all he wants is to lie and to cheat and to mislead people, that is definitely far from being shalem. And the next one is Resh va'osher al titen li. There are two very difficult challenges in life, the rabbis tell us. Very difficult challenges. One is poverty. She'en yisurim kemo ha'oni. One of the worst types of afflictions that a person can experience during his lifetime is called poverty, no money. If a person is sick, so he feels the pain much more than everybody else around him. But when a man, the breadwinner, is poor, it's terrible. The whole family suffers. And it's very embarrassing, very difficult experience. And in the olden days, it used to be much more of a common thing than today. Even today, there are poor people. But years ago, there were more than there are today. And it's a challenge. So is wealth. Wealth is also a very difficult challenge. And which one do you think is more difficult? Wealth. Being wealthy, having a lot of money, is a big problem. No, it's a blessing, but it could be a big problem. What does Shlomo Melech ask for? I want neither extremes, no poverty, no wealth. Atrifeni lechem choki. Just give me, provide for me my allotted bread. Just give me what I need for parnasah. I don't need more. So I can pay my bills. If I'm able to pay the bills and have what to eat, clothing, furniture, a house, a roof over your head, that's enough. I don't want anything more. What's wrong? What's wrong with Oni and Osher? Why is it so difficult? In the next pasuk, it reveals to us what they can lead to. If I become wealthy, he says as follows: Penes ba v'chichashti ve'amarti mi Adonai ufeni varesh v'ganafti v'tafasti Shem Elohai. Lest I become sated, in other words, full, and I say, who is the Lord? Who is Hashem? And lest I become impoverished, or is it impoverished? I remember from last time, I guess. Lest I become impoverished and steal and take hold of the name of my God. What does that mean? Hashem swear falsely. If somebody is wealthy, he's risking rebelling against Hashem, taking credit for all his genius, for all his successes, for all his wealth, for being the greatest army in the world, for being the best here, for the best there. And when it comes to poverty, he's pressured because of his poverty to swear falsely, to deny that he took the money, that he received a loan, whatever it may be. He may come to swear falsely using the name of Hashem. Poor person may also have many complaints to Hashem. But rabbis tell us, you know why wealth is worse than poverty? Because at least the poor man, his heart is humble. And he has a better chance to pray and to always beg Hashem that he changes or improve his situation. Whereas a rich man may actually forget his commitment as a Jew, his commitments to his old friends who he forgot about them, commitment to his own family even, if he has lots of money. He may not take care of a brother who's poor. You know, there are many, many stories in Jewish literature about a poor man who has a rich uncle. Right? The poor man who has a rich uncle. But what good is that rich uncle if the rich uncle doesn't help him? And there have been many stories like that. Till today. And one of the last Pesukim that we'll talk about has to do with individuals who don't have any pity even on their own relatives. And the Torah is very clear about when you give tzedakah, that you cannot ignore the plight of those who are closest to you. They come first. Your sister, your brother, your nephew, your niece, they come before other poor people. It's your blood. It doesn't mean that you're discriminating, it's yours. You have to take care of that which is yours. Rabbis, of course, talk about the importance of helping the poor of Eretz Israel, Aniyeh Eretz Israel. They talk about, nevertheless, about Aniyeh Ircha, those poor in your own city. Got to take care of them first. That is where you are, that is where your responsibilities are first. The Chachamim had to prioritize for us, otherwise it would be tricky. Who comes first? Or maybe everybody's equal. No. Two people are going in the desert, two friends. And one of them has a jar of water. If he drinks it himself, he will live before they reach the next station of water. If he shares it with his friend, they both will die. What should he do? The Gemara says very clearly, Chayecha kodmim v'chayecha varecha. If it's your water, your life comes first. You don't have to share it if you have a chance of staying alive. The rabbis have to tell us some clear guidelines, priorities. And what to do with your money. If you're blessed with money, what should you do with the money? What does the money mean? What does the wealth mean? Maybe it's a curse. Maybe it's not a beracha. How could one tell if what he has is a curse or beracha? Another time we'll talk about that. But it's definitely a test. Regardless of what the source of this money is, whether it's a blessing or a curse or simple mazal, it's always going to be a test. What are you going to do with the money? Shlomo says, I don't want this test. And it is a difficult test. A lot of people say, Hashem, just give me the money. I'm telling you, I'll do something good with it. And they promise. When the time comes, they don't deliver. That's because the Yetzer Hara is very, very powerful when it comes to money. Very, very powerful. So Shlomo says, I don't want it. I don't want it. Rabbis tell us more things about money. The more money you have, the more worries you have. You sure you want more money? You have more money, you're scared they're going to take it away from you. You have to put bars in your house. I ask people, why do you put bars in your windows? You should walk around with bars, because the chances of getting held up are greater than somebody breaking into your house. So why don't you walk around with bars? People are afraid, they don't sleep well, they're always thinking how to make another dollar, because if you have 1 million, you want 2 million. So it's a vicious cycle, as they say, and it's not always a blessing to have a lot of money. He says, I want atrifeni lechem chuki. I will be very happy if all I have is what I need, nothing more. Next pasuk, also very important pasuk. Al talshen eved el adonav pen yikalelcha ve'ashamta. Pen yikalelcha ve'ashamta. Do not inform on a slave to his master lest he curse you and you be found guilty. The simple meaning over here is that this pasuk is talking about lashon hara and rechilut, slandering, gossiping, talking about others. But here, who is he describing? Who is being talked about? An eved. He who is low. He who has a master over him. He who is vulnerable. Because he's vulnerable, you might be tempted to speak about him. You might feel it's okay to talk about him. Be careful. Because if you inform on him and he curses you, you may be found guilty. You will be punished. That curse may come true on you for having informed on him. Have to be very careful with lashon hara. People do not learn the halacha of lashon hara. They don't know, what am I allowed to say? A shidduch comes your way. You're supposed to give your opinion. What do you think of this man, of this young woman? And there's something not too nice about them. Could you say it? Could you share it? We have to learn hilchot lashon hara. What can we say? What can we not say? You cannot just tell people, this man did something to me. Well, if you have a complaint, take him to a bedin and let the bedin hear both sides at the same time. Otherwise, it's lashon hara. A judge who hears one side can no longer has to disqualify himself from the case because he's already biased. He's already heard one side and he already believes him. So the simple meaning of this pasuk is be very careful not to inform, not to talk about other people. Otherwise, you risk being cursed. But he's also talking about another very important point that is mentioned very strongly in Judaism, that one has to be very careful. Lo limsor din al chavero afilu rasha. Never tell HaKadosh Baruch Hu, take care of him, punish him. He did this to me, he did that to me. Hashem, you take care of him. I can't do anything anymore. I give you the din. Anybody who tells Hashem to punish someone, Hashem says, really, you want me to do that? Let's take a look at you now. Yeah, are you completely clean too? Are you okay? Maybe we should start with you first. Since you're asking to go after somebody else, I'm going to go after you. So kol hamoser din al chavero ne'nash tchila. They punish him first. They go after him. You have to be very, very careful. There are some opinions who hold that if there's no judges in town, or this is completely mafia town, there's nothing else, then of course you can ask Hashem, but even then you should be careful. Hashem, you help me. Don't ask Hashem to do a din al chavero. First of all, maybe you deserve whatever it is. That a lot of people have been put in jail for no reason. They're really innocent. Have you heard of that? It happens, and they let them free after 20 years, right? They finally got the DNA, and they realized that he wasn't the rapist. Have you heard of that? It's a similar story. For no reason whatsoever. Anybody who studies Judaism knows she'en mikreh. There's no such a thing as a coincidence, as something happening by chance, as something happening for no reason. Even though a person who does a wrong, whether it's a criminal or a policeman or whatever, if they really did a wrong, they may have to pay for it. But the victim is never just a victim of circumstances. The victim is a victim because kach nigzera mi'hashamayim alav. That is what was decreed by Shamayim either on that day, either on Rosh Hashanah of that year, or from his mazal, that he has to undergo through this because of some tikkun of previous gilgul, previous incarnation. So therefore, if something happens, why are you asking Hashem to punish him? Maybe Hashem wants it to happen like that. Maybe he allowed it to happen. You have to be careful not to ask Hashem to do his business. Hashem knows what he needs to do. This is also a very important lesson for prophets. For prophets. Hosea ben Beri did not do the right thing by telling Hashem, Hashem, these Jews are no good. Switch them. Take another nation. This is a Jewish prophet telling Hashem, Hashem, you know what? Switch. Take some other kids. Take some other nation. They're really no good. What does Hashem tell him? Go marry a prostitute. Very, very strange thing. And he has kids with her, and then he's told to leave her. How could it leave? How could he leave? How could he leave this woman who he got married and who he began to love and became attached? Hashem says, here, you take somebody that you did not know, some stranger, some prostitute, and now you have a hard time letting go, and you want me to let go of the Jewish people? This is a lesson for him to learn. There were two kinds of prophets, however, and that has a lot to do with their personality. One prophet always fought for the kavod of Hashem, Eliyahu Navi, Yeshayahu. They were very upset at Am Yisrael, and they spoke to Hashem, Hashem, these people, are no good. They're stubborn. Eliyahu Navi was punished. He tells Hashem that they're not fulfilling your covenant. Really? You're going to have to come to every Brit Milah and testify how they do fulfill the covenant. Yeshayahu was punished. His lips were burnt because he expressed, I'm sitting amongst a nation that has unclean lips. Really? So don't speak bad about my people, Hashem says. Your job as a prophet is to speak good about them, to defend them. But these prophets, in some ways they were right, because they were fighting for the kavod of Hashem. There were other prophets like Yonah. They fought for the kavod of the Jewish people. I'm going to go give Musar to Nineveh, a city of Goyim? How is that going to look if they do teshuvah and my Jewish brothers don't? I'd rather not go, Hashem. No, my brothers. I don't want them to, Chas v'shalom, suffer the consequences. He fought for the kavod of his Jewish people. Different kinds of nevi'im. Nevertheless, Shlomo Melech makes a very good point. You have to be careful not to speak bad about Jews, even if they're secular, even if they're Rasha'im. Don't inform on them. It's not so simple to talk about another individual. The next pasuk, Dor aviv yekalel v'timo lo yivarech. A generation that curses its father and does not bless its mother. In the following 4 pasukim, I think, he's going to talk about various individuals who one should stay away from. They are called individuals who are mushchatim. These are individuals who are corrupt because of what they do. Therefore, do not associate with them. But he's also describing a situation which is very unfortunate. If it ever happens that one is living at a time where Dor Aviv Yekalel, where we're living in a generation, which is our generation, that curses its father and does not bless its mother, a generation that has no akarat tov, no appreciation to the previous generation, a generation that is disrespectful to the elders, it's no good. That's not a good sign. That's a terrible sign. Why? Because it shows that we don't have any respect for the Masoret, that we no longer have any respect for our tradition. There is a very important connection between our forefathers, the previous generation, and the tradition. The generation of Mashiach, the rabbis tell us, chutzpah yizgeh. Chutzpah will increase. That a son will rebel against his own father. He will speak up. He will be chatzuf. People will be more rebellious. There will not be the same kavod as there was 50, 60 years ago, whether it's to the teachers, to the elders, to the rabbis. And as a result of that, guess what else happens? There will be a lot of assimilation. People will become distant from Judaism, and the two go together. Because if there is no kavod to the parents, then why should the child give kavod to the father's tradition? You see? if the child really loves his father and mother, you think he would easily move away and marry a non-Jewish girl? If you know that that means so much to your parents, would you do something that would hurt them, that would pain them? It's just like husband and wife, which I've used this as an example in the past, or even two very good friends. If you were prepared to do something that will pain, that you know will pain your friend, your spouse, you still do it, that means you don't really love them 100%. In a true loving situation, one would never do something that he knows would very much bring pain to the other individual. If he does so, then his love is not 100%, or maybe he has a weakness, he has a problem. He really cares, but he's addicted to something. Whatever. It's still either way, it's still a problem. The relationship will suffer as a result. It's not complete. It's not 100%. So therefore, here, with the lack of respect for the previous generation, for the lack of kavod, the tradition, the masoret, which the father is responsible in handing over to this child, will suffer too. So the first individual we're talking about that he tells us to stay away from is one who is disrespectful of a previous generation, who has no kavod for his parents. The next one is dor tahor be'inav umitzoato lo rachutz, a generation that is pure in its eyes but is not cleansed of its filth. Those who think that they're okay, they didn't do anything wrong, their problem is that they will never do teshuvah. Rabbis consider many of these people in this category tovel v'sheretz be'ado. He goes to the mikveh, he wants to become clean, but he takes with him an insect that is tameh in his hand. He holds it while he's going down in the mikveh. Let go of it. If you want to really become clean, let go of your bad ways, let go of your tumah. Don't go down with it. There are a lot of people who are doing teshuvah, but they're still holding on to their bad ways. That's called tovel v'sheretz biyado, immersing themselves in the mikveh. That's good, but they're still holding on to the sheretz, to the unclean animal, to the tum'ah. So these people, this generation, dor tahor ve'inav umitzoato lo rachutz, they did not cleanse themselves. They will have a hard time doing teshuvah. How could you give somebody musar? How could you give somebody tochacha? If he thinks he's perfect, if he thinks he's clean, it's almost a lost case. I never like to say somebody's a lost case, but this one is almost like a lost case. If they don't really think that they may have something to repair, something to perfect. The next one is dor maramu einav ve'afapa binaseu, a generation how lofty are its eyes and its eyelids are raised. Talking about balei gava, arrogant people who are very comfortable. And this is a very terrible midah, because rabbis tell us gava mevi'a lidei kol minei chataim. Arrogance is a very, very bad midah because it leads to many sins. Therefore also somebody to stay away from. The next one is dor haravot shinav u'ma'achalot metale'otav le'echol aniim meretz ve'vyonim me'adam. A little bit wordy, a little bit difficult. And this is the translation. A generation whose teeth are like swords and its molars are like knives, to devour the poor of the land and the needy of the men. I don't know why he uses so many words to describe people who are out to get the poor, to take advantage of them, to devour the poor, the land of the needy men, the land and the needy of men. What he's talking about are those people, shalom erachamim al aniyim, those who are not compassionate, who have no pity on the poor, who are out there to enrich themselves, al cheshbon aniyim, on account of the poor, whether they are in a position of power or whether they're just individuals who do not give tzedakah, and they can. And he compares them to, it's a generation of haravot, of swords, because they are destructive in their ways, in their business ethics. And if you meet up with such an individual, again, stay away from him. This is something very corrupt, very unfortunate, terrible midah, not to have pity. Am Yisrael is known as Baishanim, Rachmanim, Gomlei Chasadim. We are Baishanim, we are bashful. Rachmanim, we're kind, compassionate. Gomlei Chasadim, we're kind. All of these midot, all these characteristics belong to the Jewish nation. If a Jew is lacking in one of those in its entirety, Rabbi tells you may suspect that he has non-Jewish blood running through his veins. How could it be that he's totally not compassionate? How could it be that he never does an act of kindness? How could it be that he's not at all bashful at ever? Maybe there's some non-Jewish blood running through his veins. Otherwise, how do you explain it? So somebody who is destructive in society, does not look well on the poor, does not help them, is not a good man. The next few pesukim are very, very enigmatic, very puzzling, but the commentaries, without the commentaries, it would be hard for us to understand what he's saying. These are the last ones that we'll do for tonight. Pasuk Tetvav. La'aluka shtei banot, hav. Shalosh henna lo tizbana, arba lo amru hon. Okay, listen carefully to the translation. La'aluka shtei banot, the leech. You know what a leech is? You know what an aluka is? A leech or an aluka sucks your blood. They used to use it sometimes to draw blood. The leech has 2 daughters, give and give. There are 3 that are not sated and 4 that do not say enough. Okay, it's very hard to understand what he's talking about, right? So what is the aluka here? In this pesukim, he's talking about the punishment that will come on all these individuals that we just mentioned, all these bad individuals. La aluka shtei banot hav. He's talking about Gan Eden and Gehenom. They both want. They both say give. The Gehenom wants the Reshaim, give me the Reshaim. Gan Eden says, give me the Tzadikim. That is why he says, Shalosh hena lo tizbana, there are 3 that never become full. Arba lo amru hon. Sheol ve'otzer racham eretz lo save'a mayim ve'esh lo amra hon. The grave, the confined womb, and the earth which is not sated with water, and fire which does not say enough. What you see over here is a description of the various punishments that can occur to the world as a result of these kinds of individuals. One is Sheol. What's Sheol? The grave. When people die before their time. Otzer Racham, as the rabbis or as the Torah calls it elsewhere, is the punishment of Ariri, where a person is not blessed with children. Otzer Racham, in other words, the womb is held back. Eretz lo save'a mayim, a little bit of water comes down, but the land is not saturated with water. In other words, there's not enough rain. Ve'esh lo amra hon, and when you have many wildfires, the fire says it's not enough. In other words, I haven't had enough, I want to consume more and more. These are some of the punishments that can happen to individuals, to those individuals who have the characteristics that were mentioned before. Rabbis also tell us that the reason why Sheol and Otzer Racham or Rechem, the womb, are mentioned together, because there is a remez here, hint to Tchiyat HaMetim. Just like a woman becomes impregnated, something enters her body and something exits her body, that is the way birth occurs. In the same way is Sheol, or the grave. Something enters the grave and something will also come out of the grave. In other words, there is a connection between the grave and the rechem, and the womb of a woman. A remes tchiyat hametim, the rabbis tell us. Another way of looking at it is, if somebody who was never here before arrived in this world once, right? The more so, somebody that was already here will come back. You see a little bit of the logic? If somebody that was never here before was able to be born and come into this world, then the more so it should be possible for somebody who's already been here before that should be coming back. And that's the way, of course, seeds of apples or of any tree, of any fruit work. I mean, the apple, the fruit was here before, it has seeds. You plant those seeds, a new apple or a new tree will come out, right? So that's why there is a connection here between the Sheol, between the grave, and the mother's womb. The last pasuk, I think that we'll do tonight, says as follows. It's a continuation of what we just said. Ain til'ag le'av v'tavuz le'kehat hem yikeruha orvei nachal v'yochluha v'nei nashel. Again, he talks about the punishment that will come to someone who is disrespectful of his father. The eye that mocks the father and despises the mother's wrinkles, may the ravens of the valley pick it out and the young eagles devour it. Very poetic, very difficult to understand, but what he's saying is somebody who is not respectful of his parents one who opposes his parents, this is what should happen to him. Why does he use ravens? Anybody know? Orvim. Orvei nachal v'yochlu b'nei nesher. What does ravens are? Rabbis tell us that the ravens are very achzarim, they're very cruel on their own kids too. And if one is cruel to his parents and does not take into account how good they were to him for all these years when he was a child, that's cruelty. When they need him in their older years. And this happens a lot today. You know, that a child is ending up taking care of his parent. Sometimes the parents don't want to be a burden on their children. Therefore they don't seek the assistance. But nevertheless they would appreciate the kavod and the respect and the attention that everybody likes and everybody wants. And they deserve it. That is the way, at least a little bit of the appreciation that we can show them for all that they have done for us. But why is he so severe here? Why is he telling us that let this man be punished in such a manner? The reason for that is as follows. The rabbis tell us, "Shakadosh Baruch Hu hishva et kavod haorim lichvodo." HaKadosh Baruch Hu made equal his kavod to the kavod of the parents. Kabed tavicha v'timecha. It's in the Aseret HaDibrot, to honor one's parents. The whole idea of kibud orim is very, very significant in Judaism. Why? Why so much? So the rabbis tell us because it is through the mitzvah of kibud avayim that one can really attain the mitzvah of ahavat Hashem, the love for Hashem. How is that? When one sees what his parents did for him or do for him, that they fed him, they clothe him, they take care of all his needs, he will come to realize how much Hashem does for him, how much Hashem takes care of him. In this way, this will implant in him the akarat hatov, the appreciation, and ultimately the ahavat Hashem for all that Hashem does for us, His kindness. Despite all the trouble that Am Yisrael has gone through, Hashem has been very kind to us. He's been very compassionate to us. And the fact is, the facts speak for themselves, all the miracles that we've witnessed. So even though we've been living through very difficult times where many people have been killed and suffered, and people have had complaints to Hashem because of the Holocaust and the like, you have to take the whole picture, look at it at the whole, not just at the specifics. And if you look at the specifics, because if you look at the specifics, at one specific, at the second specific, you might get the wrong conclusions. You might think that this is a very cruel God. And that is what some people think after the Holocaust or after the various calamities that occurred over the Jewish people, because they only read a specific part of history. You have to read the whole history of the Jewish people that spans over 3,000 years. And we have the benefit of being able to read the script that HaKadosh Baruch Hu has given us. And if you read the script, it's like knowing the outcome of the movie before the movie begins. And what's the outcome of this long movie? The good guys will always win. Just like in Hollywood. Right? The good guys always win. So even though Am Yisrael has been persecuted, even though we've had hard times, in the end, we are the good guys. And we're going to win. It doesn't appear to us this way. It appears very cruel. That's only because we're looking at something very, very specific. We have to look at the whole picture. And that is the significance of kibud avayim, for a child to respect the previous generation, for him to give kavod to the elders, for him to realize that they have so much knowledge because they are closer to Sinai than he is, and his grandfather is even closer. That is the whole idea behind giving kavod to previous generations. They're smarter than us, now we are smarter than them. A lot of people today have the wrong attitude. They think that just because kids today are able to play on computers, that makes them smarter than their parents. We're not talking about brain power here. We're talking about kedusha, we're talking about spirituality, we're talking about tmimut, sincerity. Yes?
I think that would be a clear implication for the Jewish people today, as a result that Esau's head was buried at Hebron.
Therefore?
Well, Esau respected his parents.
Yeah, Esau had some zechut, of course. Yeah, some merit as a result of that.
So it must be a message for us.
Yeah. No, it's not only a message for us, it's a message for everybody. It applies even for the Goyim. The Goyim accept it too. The Goyim accept this too. However, by us, it's very significant because the whole tradition, the whole Masoret, The whole Jewish faith, the whole emunah of Am Yisrael is dependent on this connection between a father and a son. In the Kriyat Shema we say V'shinantam levanecha. It's the father's responsibility to hand over the tradition to his children. It's his responsibility that the future generations continue with the Torah. And if he cannot teach because he does not know, then he has to send them to a good school where they will teach them, where the teachers will give over to them. And that is the importance of respect for the teachers. And the teachers don't have that today too much, unfortunately. Right? Many teachers do not have the respect that their teachers had when they were younger, when they were students themselves. So this is something that we've been suffering from, because these are the days of Mashiach that the rabbis tell us, listen, this is what you should be expecting. You have the script. If you read it, which many people are not doing, then you will have a better understanding of why things are happening. Many things are happening today in the world, and the only way to understand them, to have a better understanding of what it is and what it means and where it's leading to, is to read the script. People who complain, why is the Holocaust, why did God do this, is because they haven't read the Torah. If they would read the Torah, they may not have all the explanations, but at least they will realize she'en mikayut, that nothing is happening by chance by itself, that everything is preordained, everything is being directed from above. Sheyesh mashgiach, there is a supervisor, and that is HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And it's through the kavod that we give our parents that we will be able to relate to him as well, because there's an important connection between the two. And that is why Shlomo Melech emphasizes how important it is to maintain strong kesher, strong relationship between children and parents.